it's not just that J.K. Rowling is throwing her money around. It's that she's throwing her reputation around. And I think that is what's funny to me is like looking around at people who have amassed, all this prestige and, now they're beloved figures and whatever, but they don't use that for anything. You know what I mean? Like, cause they're so, it's like money hoarders. Like now I have money. Well, now I just want to keep my money.
Yes, they still have a scarcity complex. They don't
but
own
you have
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's this feeling of, it feels to me like reputation hoarding, like in a way that is anti-social, not pro-social, like building a good reputation, that's pro-social. But then
in the culture war, there are no winners, just podcasters. Only a few are willing to risk their lives in the face of some of the dumbest ideas to have ever captured human civilization. Every week, we, Megan Daum and Sarah Hayter, humbly accept this mission to bring you conversations that are equal parts stunning, brave, and totally eclipsed. Welcome to a special place in hell. Hi, Sarah. I am back from the eclipse.
So you saw it?
I'm back from the abyss. Yeah, I did. I saw it.
Was it your first time?
I guess it was my first time with like such a legitimate eclipse.
Oh, you saw the full eclipse?
Yeah, I went to the path of totality.
Wow. How was it?
It was great. It was the best 4 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
No, it was okay. So yeah, we had our on speakeasy retreat in Louisville, which I scheduled without realizing that this event was taking place. And apparently that was a big mistake scheduling wise, and I had to shift everything around. But yeah, people came from all over. I watched it in Indianapolis with one of our on speakeasy ladies, who's a friend of mine, and it was lovely. Although it's crazy. People were flying in from all over. A Motel 6 room was like $900 a night or something.
Yeah. I saw it the last time it was here.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm back from that, and what else? We've got a number of things to talk about. I do want to. While we are talking about traveling and recreation, I don't know if you happen to see. I'm sure you did not. There was a piece in the Atlantic. If we're not talking about New York Magazine, we're talking about the Atlantic. About the icon of the seas, the cruise ship, the largest cruise ship ever built. And there is a piece by Gary Steingart, the novelist, who's extremely lauded contemporary novelist. He's great. He's amazing. He's probably one of the most celebrated contemporary novelists. And they sent him for 7 nights on this ship to report on what it was like. And
wait, why does this need to be reported? Is this like something people like who read the Atlantic, it's so far away from the kind of vacation they would do that it has to have like, you have to like
right, it's like sending somebody to another planet or to Alabama
and just
something.
like report to tell us how was it,
how the people are. Yeah, well, it's become a genre. I mean, writing about cruise ships, I guess ever since, or maybe even before, David Foster Wallace famously wrote about going on a cruise in Harper's, and I think it was in 1996. It's just like a thing to do to send some sort of, effete, erudite person to report on, to just sort of chronicle what he sees and, the people and how disgusting they are. But, David Foster Wallace, who was himself from the Midwest and not, he was a, person operating in sophisticated East Coast circles, but was not of that world for sure, was not inclined to be a snob. Nonetheless, like wrote, I guess, an arguably snobby piece, but he really ended up spending his entire time hiding in his stateroom, in his cabin, because he couldn't deal with the people. Because
I would jump off. I swear.
No, if you saw a picture of the ship, you would not jump off. I mean, have you seen the pictures of this? Oh, you would definitely die.
Well, that's what I'd want to do.
That's what Gary Steingart wanted to do too.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. Why would anyone subject themselves to this? I know people who go on cruise ships and they like it. They enjoy the whole experience.
Well, that's the
And I
thing. So
think it's a nightmare.
I've never, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I was on a sort of a cruise. I mean, I was on like the closest I've been on a cruise ship, I was on like a riverboat cruise in Egypt, of all places.
Mm.
And it was totally disgusting. It was like kind of budget cruise, and it was filled with these kind of like, I hate to just say it. They were like the trailer trash version of Lebanese people. Okay.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
It was just filled with cigarette smoke, like the entire ship. But yeah, Icon of the Seas has a maximum capacity is 7,600 passengers.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's enormous.
Why would you do this?
Well,
Why
right,
would
I
you
know. So
with
yeah,
so
the
many
crew
people?
is like almost 2,500 people. They have water park. They have, skating rink. They have a whole like neighborhood. I mean, it's like you can probably, I don't know if you can buy real estate. It's like a development, like a planned community. You know, the Swim and Tonic, the largest swim up bar at sea. And Gary goes, and he's from Russia originally. He's he's like he's described himself as a small ethnic person, and it's very dazzlingly written in terms of the prose. And I liked the piece. I'm not here to like crap on the piece, but this kind of feigning befuddlement at fat red state people, people in MAGA hats, people who go on cruises routinely, and people who, they collect their cruise miles. Like, apparently this is a whole thing. Like, if you are a person who goes on a lot of cruises, it's a big deal how many hours or days you have logged in cruising in your lifetime. And I don't know.
No, I totally, I get what you're coming. I see your distaste at that approach to what is, it's a way to be. It's a way to enjoy your time, I guess. I don't understand why anybody does. I think it's kind of sick. But it's also sick to like, view them like some kind of safari creature,
I know. I
with
mean,
your binoculars out.
Yeah.
And reporting on what they're doing, and they're at the watering hole.
And he did try to talk to them. And apparently there was one couple that kept talking to him about Ayn Rand, which was kind of funny, but I don't know. I mean, it does sound like a miserable assignment. He had to, he got there, and I guess the magazine had only paid like $19,000 or something for his ticket. And that got him like a very sort of mid-range room.
$19,000?
Oh yeah. No, I was looking this up. Like the fancy rooms. He says, this publication was faced with the shocking prospect of paying nearly $19,000 to procure for this solitary passenger an entire suite for all of the privilege of bringing you this article. But the suite in question doesn't even have a view of the ocean. He obviously wasn't allowed to bring his wife. I mean, it would suck. Like, this is the kind of thing.
Okay, for an assignment, if this is your job, that's fun. Okay, like then it can be fun. I just wouldn't do it for any other reason.
Yeah, and I do think that he is going to try to pitch a TV show about it. He says as much at the end, but I don't know. It made me think about like this is very sort of 90s, early 2000s kind of piece, the kind of thing that everybody would have gone nutso over back then. And I just wonder if it just doesn't land as well anymore. Like people are people just sort of tired of like New Yorkers going to Disneyland and talking about late capitalism and this sort of thing? Is it just too obvious?
Part of it might be that it's done to death, and people don't like what it seems to be saying. But I think that another part of it is that the world really is so, like we are so secluded, we are so separated by class that it's not even funny in the way like, oh, I recognize some of this, and I think that it's foreign in the way, okay, here's what these Japanese middle-aged people are doing in, like, and it's some bizarre activity that they're spending their free time on and money on. It would just be, oh, that's foreigners in a foreign land doing a weird thing. Okay, I don't care, really. Like, that's what I would expect. And I think maybe that's a little bit of what's going on, that it's not even like, oh yeah, my aunt whatever used to do things like this and go on cruises all the time. There's no connection at all. It's so foreign that it's only strange and gross, and not strange and gross in a way where you can, like, some kind of tied back to it, and I don't know. I don't even think it says anything about you anymore to turn up your nose at it the way that it might have back when it really could have been you that wanted to go on that cruise, but for your taste.
Yeah. I mean, he does do a good job of actually just describing the physical qualities of the ship. I mean, this is the second paragraph of the piece. The ship makes no sense vertically or horizontally. It makes no sense on sea or on land or in outer space. It looks like a hodgepodge of domes and minarets, tubes and canopies, like Istanbul had it been designed by idiots. Vibrant, over-signifying colors are stacked upon other colors, decks perched over still more decks. The only comfort is a row of lifeboats ringing its perimeter. There's no imposed order, no cogent thought, and for those who do not harbor a totalitarian sense of gigantomania, no visual mercy. This is the biggest cruise ship ever built, and I have been tasked with witnessing its inaugural voyage. I know you hate this kind of writing. I mean, it is.
No, I don't hate it. I like it. I just don't like the subject. I wish it was going to something useful. That's all. I wish it was describing something worth knowing about.
I mean, I was thinking about how if I were in his position, I feel like I would be sort of trying to surprise the reader by coming out on the other side with like some kind of, like I have an affair with one of these people on the ship, or I fall in love with it, or somehow like I decide I want to do it, or like I end up, spending the whole time with one of the crew members. I don't know. But then that's also such a posture. Yeah. By definition, you're not going to be authentic. But
I mean, there's just nothing to gain other than coming off one way or the other, which I guess that's what I don't like about this kind of writing, that it seems as if it's for the writer to project a certain kind of image about themselves more than it is about the subject, even the journey or the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, I guess, and I feel like he does try to talk to the people, and I'm sure they were tedious, but I wonder.
The podcast should pay for me to go to Vegas.
I know. I don't know why we can't get these kinds of gigs.
Yeah, we should go to a casino, and we should do a similar thing.
Do you think we could
write a whole thing about it?
Do you think someday we could have, if we get big enough, we can have like a special place in hell cruise, and that all the fans would just pay a lot of money to join, like the Nation cruise?
Do we have to go?
Oh no, we wouldn't be there.
Can we just send them off together?
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't even have to call it. The cruise ship could just be called a special place in hell. I mean, it would be redundant. But I don't know. But yeah,
we can work up to it.
I know. Definitely. But like the whole thing, like, would you ever take a cruise? Ever?
No, never.
Like, that's so many. What about Alaska? Would you take an Alaskan cruise and see?
Why do people do that? Why
because
don't
they want to see the animals.
Alaska?
Because it's apparently really nice. Like that's kind of more. That's higher.
I would do it
end.
in a way where I wouldn't want to be around other people. Like I just couldn't enjoy that. I think there's just too many people. I would get claustrophobia. I would be thinking the whole time that I'm about to get food poisoning. The whole time. That would be the only thing on my mind. I mean, hotel rooms are gross. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. It's a hotel. It's a floating hotel.
I love hotels.
And
really?
You do?
Oh my God. I love a
They're
hotel.
Gross.
Love a nice hotel. Really?
You're not grossed out by the idea.
I mean, if I'm staying in a gross hotel, I don't like it. But like
they're all
nice
a little
hotel?
bit gross. They're all gross, aren't they? Like they can't be that clean, and who knows what's gone on there?
I know. I don't think about
Could be
that.
anything.
I don't think about that. You just can't think about it. It's one of these things you can't think about.
I just think, like, I look at a seat and I'll look at a chair and I'll think, what if the guy before me just hours ago was sitting bare-assed on that chair, and now it's, sweating in it, and now it's going to be me. And I'm not, I don't want to.
That is quite a series of thoughts to have.
That's my
just walking
all I
into
can
a
think about
hotel
is other
room.
people being disgusting in that room, and I can't stand it.
So can you go on vacation?
I do, I get through it. I just don't enjoy myself in the hotel room. I just don't like
Oh,
the hotel room. I
yeah.
wanna be out.
Really?
I'll go anywhere else.
I mean, the thing, again, and like reading this, I was thinking about why people like cruises, because you don't have to make decisions. Like there's certain things that
Mhm.
are available, and you just take advantage of them. I mean, it is kind of like the paradox of choice, right? Like if you just are sort of traveling, like backpacking around and staying in hostels, like there's a million things you can choose to do, and you're sort of accountable for your choices.
And that's work in itself, like
Yeah.
figuring
And you
out
can
what to
mess
do is
up
work.
and regret that you did this, or, and in this case, it's just sort of like it is truly a vacation because you're not making any decisions.
Yeah, I see that, and I see the appeal of that as well. Like, I prior to becoming a mom, I would have never understood that on any level, and now it's kind of like, "Oh, that's great." Like, it's great to not have to think about all these other things and just know that you're gonna be accommodated, and they are here for the sole purpose of giving you a nice, relaxed time. And, like, I think about now, like, doing an all inclusive resort. Like, I would have never in a million years done that before, this point where now it's like, okay, they need to have like a pack and play and,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
a little kids club, whatever, like that they need to accommodate all of that. And I like not having to worry about it. So
Yeah.
that's for the first time I see what that's about. But at the same time, it's like we don't know how to just relax anymore. We need everything to be scheduled and coordinated, even our
Right. Right.
vacations.
Yeah. I can't take vacations at all. I mean, we couldn't take them my family was incapable of it. I mean, they just couldn't handle it. So we
They
never
couldn't
did them.
handle it, or they just
Well, they couldn't
couldn't afford.
afford it. I mean, well, that was just would not have been where they put their money. I mean, we would never have done anything beyond like go to Maine or something with there was another family that we used to go to Maine with. We did that several times, but
Going to Maine. What do you do in Maine?
just
Catch
sat around. Yeah. I
lobster
mean, there was the other
related.
family I played with their kids, and we would like, mess around on the beach, but that was very, very rare. I mean, yeah, because my father was self-employed and he was just terrified of being away from the phone. There was he couldn't be reached. It was a very big deal when they got the answering machines that you could like call remotely and check your
Mhm, mhm,
messages. And that
mhm.
was like a huge thing. And but no, it was just too stressful. They couldn't relax, they couldn't have a good time. My parents didn't enjoy like recreation of any sort, and so
Mhm.
we just didn't do it. It was very stressful when we went on vacation, and I still have that now. I don't like it. Like I would never, unless I like am in a relationship with somebody who like gets the idea to go on vacation and forces me, I never go.
So is it that you are in like a similar situation where you're like working all the time? You have the kind of career where you're forced to there's no clocking out
There's no
with the
clocking out.
kind of work that
Right, but I could
you're
also
doing.
bring the work. I mean, it's not like somebody can't reach me, so I don't have that problem. I'm not like my father was
But
afraid he was going to be losing work. That was
what if
always
you
what it
had the
was.
kind of job where it was like after 5 p.m. you leave the
Yeah.
office and you cannot work? You literally can't do
I
it,
can't even imagine it. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you had that kind of job, you would be able to get into the groove a little
Mhm.
bit better. I think it is somewhat to do with your profession and what you're saying about
Yeah.
father's
I mean,
profession.
I like going places I like traveling for work.
Mhm.
That's my favorite thing. And I used to do that
That's
a
my least
lot.
favorite
Oh, I
thing.
love
I
it.
don't like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I used to get sent. I mean, I used to do a fair amount of writing, travel writing. I would get sent places. I mean, this Gary Steingart piece reminds me a little bit of this. I got this assignment one time to write about spring break in Cancun. I got sent to
Mm.
Cancun with a
That's a great
photographer. Oh
assignment.
my God. I was so miserable. It was just like,
Really?
oh my God, it
Why?
was disgusting. It was like these high rises, these disgusting, cinder block hotels filled with college kids. And they had these, their little wrist bracelets, and they were just all hammered. I mean, it was like a vomitorium. And I
Ew.
would be trying to interview them. And I was such like this, I'm like walking around with my,
How old were you when
how
this
old
was?
was I?
Yeah.
probably 32. And and I'm like
Okay.
walking around with my little tape recorder, be like, "Hey," and they didn't know what they were saying, and it was just gross. And but I realized actually, but I did actually manage to have a kind of revelation about what was going on, and I would was able to kind of craft the piece around something that was more than just this is gross. But it was funny because, speaking of fact checking, when the fact checker, then I had to hand everything in when I filed the piece, and here's like the names of all the people I interviewed or whatever, because I also had to get their phone numbers or their email addresses. And the fact checker said, "This is the only piece I've ever checked in my entire career where every single person was drunk when they were interviewed." So it was pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a fun. I think I would have enjoyed it. I think I like being around drunk people.
What else? We had J.K. Rowling has been up to no
No
good
good.
again.
Yeah.
What is it? She's a Holocaust denier.
She's a Holocaust
She's
denier.
a flat
Megan,
earther,
what
moon landing
next?
denier,
What
9/11
next?
denier, and vaccine skeptic.
Yeah. So I think there's some. So obviously, for those who are not in the know, this is a bunch of bullshit. It's just going on Twitter. We noticed it recently. Someone like today, like this morning, tweeted Rivka Brown on March 13th. On 13 March, I tweeted that J.K. Rowling is a Holocaust denier. That allegation is false and offensive. I've deleted it, and I apologize to J.K. Rowling. And that tweet has been retweeted like a billion times by all these activists who are like,
mission
well,
accomplished.
I'm not in the UK, so I'm gonna say it. Like, I'm gonna say that she denied the Holocaust. Haha. And
is there something that can be pointed to that they're misconstruing, or has this just been made up out of whole cloth?
I think it was something about her, what she implied about Nazis targeting trans people, or the extent to which they did, and whether that aspect of it happened the way that gender activists claim that it did.
Yes.
And of course, this meant that she was denying the Holocaust, and so that's what's been going
Maybe they're
around.
confused about what kinder transport was. I just made a dad joke. Thank you. Transport, kinder transport. Yeah, I don't.
So she sued. I think she's been doing this, J.K. Rowling, and I don't know how to feel about it, but I guess if it's available to you. But when people make these kinds of false claims about her, she'll just get her lawyers on it. And in the UK, they can really put an end to that kind of thing. I've seen several people offer her apologies over the years since she's been doing this, like, sort of
so this person
activism.
had her lawyers sticked on her, it sounds like. Then that's why she apologized, do you think?
Yeah,
tweet down.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen it happen multiple times with Rowling, and that's something that, I mean, I would definitely take. Well, would I? I don't know if I would take advantage of it if I were her, but I guess the UK is very different. Their understanding of like free speech is different than ours, but I think it's really messed up that you would just lie about this and spread these kinds of rumors about people. I don't know if this will stop it. Like, I don't know if this kind of take them to account, call them out, force them to recant, is going to do what she wants it to do. But at the same time, I do think that there should be some kind of, what's incredible about this conversation is that they just seem like they don't care if it's true or false.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just that this smears her. Like, she's a gender denialist and she's a Holocaust denier. And the point of the Holocaust denial smear is that it casts doubt on her gender stuff. And that's what's important. And that's what they want to do. And so they'll just, they don't care. They don't care that it didn't happen. They don't care that that's not what she said. That's not what she meant. That's not, it's not an accurate representation at all. And they're just happy to smear her. And it does reach people. It's not as if it just stays in psycho bubbles online and never goes anywhere else. It does spread around, and not enough normal people are brave enough, I think, to contest it, or I feel so much pressure to be on the right side of history, that they won't speak out about it. And it's incredible.
Do you feel like this is a sign of sort of last gasps, though? They seem not last gasps, but they do seem to be getting desperate. I mean, the ad hominem attack,
They've always been
they've always
desperate.
been desperate, but it seems like it's getting more and more. I mean, we'll probably talk about
maybe
this.
in England.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll talk about this on another episode, but this CAS report that just came out, there's just the evidence is mounting that this movement is, built on sand. I mean, it was obvious from the beginning, but now there is evidence and data proving as much. And so it wouldn't surprise me if their attacks get uglier and stupider.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they can go next, like, especially when it comes to England. Like, the UK in general, it just seems like things are moving in one direction. It's starting to open up. The second the conversation actually opens up and we're allowed to speak, like, about the facts at hand, they start losing.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna close the door on it again, but I'm disgusted, obviously, by seeing this, and I feel terrible for her that she has, but she's taken it on, like a champ, and really stood up. That's incredible. That's exactly what you would hope somebody would do if they were so wealthy that they were completely untouchable.
Yes, as opposed to what other people do with their wealth. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's the Mackenzie Bezos way of handling wealth, which is, let me just hand it out as if, I'm the nicest white woman alive.
Right.
Like, I'm
can make everybody on Facebook happy with me. Yeah, exactly.
Right. By just giving them money, here it is. You want some money for your cause?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling, a very good use of "fuck you" money. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but anyway.
We're with her.
I know.
We're with you.
I do. I mean, again, I was out the other night and with a bunch of pretty normie people, and there was like a table of people, men and women, mixed group, and somehow this came up. I did not start it, I swear, the gender issue, and everyone was just kind of like, okay, you know what, I'm done. Like, we're done. I don't, this is stupid. I haven't been following it that closely, but we're at the end of this, and I'm not going to pretend anymore, and I'm not putting my pronouns, and I'm going to like call out I'm not going to make it. Maybe I won't make a fuss at work, but I'm just not going to do it. And this is not up for debate. And I'm no longer pretending that there's anything here.
That ends the conversation. That is such a powerful stance. I think people don't recognize how powerful that is until they do it, and until they see the reactions from other people around you, that you're just not gonna, because it is a social game, and the second you stop playing, they lose their power.
Yeah.
And the worst they can do is try and publicly humiliate you, try and make your life harder at work. But there are other people who are wanting to speak up too, and
yeah. I mean,
if you just stand up,
I know.
Change.
I mean, and including a lot of the people who you think are the enforcers. I mean, we talked about this a lot at the retreat. It's like so many people. I hear this, and the other night when I was out, somebody said this, like, "Oh my God, they came. I don't want to have my pronouns and my email signature, and I'm going to have to deal with this. I'm going to have to tell my boss, or I'm going to have to tell HR. I'm going to have to tell whoever it is." And they like get all geared up for this. And then it's nothing. It's a big nothing. Like the boss is like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I think if you're just, in most workplaces, if you just politely but firmly stand your ground, it'll just blow over.
Yeah.
And it won't be anything, but you will have done something important that other people now know that they can do too. And that's sufficient. That's enough to change something, like, in a very real way. I think there's just a lot of power in saying, okay, we're done here. Like that now we're going to, I'm done pretending. I'm not doing this anymore. This is unreasonable, and I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, it's not just that J.K. Rowling is throwing her money around. It's that she's throwing her reputation around. And I think that is what's funny to me, is like looking around at people who have amassed, all this prestige, and, now they're beloved figures and whatever, but they don't use that for anything. You know what I mean? Like, because they're so, it's like money hoarders. Like, now I
Yeah.
have money.
Well,
Now I can only, I just want to keep my money. I
yes,
just want
they
to,
still have a scarcity complex. They don't.
yeah,
They don't
but you
own
have
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's this feeling of, it feels to me like reputation hoarding, like in a way
Yeah.
that is anti-social, not pro-social, like building a good reputation, that's pro-social, but then refusing to risk it, even when like the circumstances are so dire and something really terrible is happening in your community. That is actually when you need the people with reputation, like
Yeah.
with that power, that social power, to speak up and utilize it
Yeah.
towards something, and to risk it, right? Really to tarnish it, to lose a little bit of it, right? Like you would lose money if you were, a wealthy person who was giving it away. You would lose the money.
Yeah.
But that would be a pro-social thing that you would do. And in the same way, I think the willingness to lose a little bit of your reputation is a pro-social thing when it comes to standing up for what you believe in. And that's what she's willing to do.
Yeah.
She's willing to lose that, which I think that's what makes her really a hero of mine, and like a model for this is how to behave, like build it up. Then what's the point of building it up if you can't?
Right. Exactly. It's like you're
something.
gonna die with all this, stuff that you're gonna just die with a whole bunch of money that you never spent. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we'll be there someday. All right. Well, now for something completely different.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Bakersfield, California, an activist is gonna go to jail because she mouthed off at the city council.
She was speaking some truth.
Is she a relative of yours, Sarah?
She
could be.
She does. She looks like she might. No, not really. We don't have this kind of bone structure, but but yeah, she's a speaking truth or power. Riddhi Patel, Riddhi, which Megan had some trouble.
Sorry, I'm not going to say it.
Riddhi.
Okay, what?
It's not a D. It's like a D.
Okay, so
it's hard to. Yeah.
So okay, now who is she? So she is. She's an activist. Is she an activist for something in particular? She was talking to the city council about the situation in Gaza, as one does, because it's direct.
Because they're gonna
direct influence.
Your local city government is gonna do something about it. I think they wanted them to I don't know if she was associated with an activist group. I know that her employer fired her, which would seem like a progressive, like NGO type group. So she wasn't there on behalf of them, but she was there to speak in favor of the city adopting a resolution that calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Again, what are they doing? What does this do? Like
it's like it's a local municipality's version of putting excuse me. It is local municipality's version of putting an "In This House We Believe" sign up in front of the town.
Yeah.
This is what we stand for.
Yeah. And the other thing that was taking her off was a resolution that was being debated by the city council on the introduction of like these screening metal detector, like public building, like security measures.
Okay.
And then in the process of protesting, like speaking against the adoption of like more security measures, she like goes out of her way to threaten people. So we should play the clip because it's short that was going around on Twitter. I think I'll try to find the longest version of it, but the version I've been seeing was like 2 minutes. And we should play it.
Okay.
Hi there, my name is Riddhi Patel. I'm here to speak in support of the City Council introducing a ceasefire resolution, specifically the one United Liberation Front has drafted. I don't have faith that you'll do this. You guys are all horrible human beings, and Jesus probably would have killed you himself. And the thing is, though, it's very clear to me as someone who's been an organizer for the past couple of years that none of you care because you guys don't care about anything happening in Palestine or any other country where oppression occurs because you don't care about the oppression occurring here. And I understand that you guys are all horrible people, but the thing is, 2,300 people being evicted in the last year, those are votes. And you guys, those are votes to win here in Bakersfield. And while you guys parade Gandhi around as a Hindu holiday called Chaitra Navratri, it starts off this week, I remind you that these holidays that we practice, that other people in the global south practice, believe in violent revolution against their oppressors. And I hope one day somebody brings the guillotine and kills all of you motherfuckers. The increased criminalization for no need other than you don't like when people come and hold you guys accountable for introducing ceasefire resolutions, because the only escalation in violence has been by you all. And so there's no need to continue. In the last 5 years I've attended city council meetings, there's never been metal detectors, there's never been more cops. The only reason you're doing it is because people actually don't care if you guys don't like them, and they're actually resisting, so you want to criminalize them. So regardless of whether you elect people into office, they'll backstab you, they'll let you die, and for that reason, you guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors? We'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
Next speaker, please.
Lance, followed by Kev, followed by Valeria.
Ms. Patel, that was a threat, what you said at the end, and so the officers are going to escort you out and take care of that.
You guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors? We'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
She's just like Gandhi.
What? What?
She's doing a Gandhi impression. So good.
Oh my god.
Take that on the road.
God.
Okay. First of all, I thought she was much younger. When I first saw this story going around, I thought she was like a college student, if not a high school student, but she's 28. She's very youthful
Incredible.
seeming.
Yeah.
Activism is, it doesn't, it keeps you young looking. I'll say that.
Keeps you young acting.
Yes. Well, if you
Keeps
act it, you are it.
cognitively, you're an infant forever.
Mhm.
But I mean, and then so people who can't see the clip, they're listening only. Her dress is pretty interesting too. I found that hilarious because she was wearing this like very colorful like kurta, and it looks like she has like a nose ring. It's very Indian. It's very she's Indian. Megan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know.
Oh, okay.
It's just so performative, like so openly performative, and frankly, like it feels as if she's using a culture that doesn't belong to her, because here she is speaking with this like perfect American accent. It doesn't sound. I would bet that she is a second generation immigrant.
Right. Well,
which is a stupid term. I think you shouldn't even call it that. You're not an immigrant if you're second generation. Right. You're just an American with parents.
But is her okay? But how relevant is her ethnic background to all this? I mean, the town of Bakersfield. I did not know this. It's got a big Punjabi population. There are more than 35,000 Sikh residents in Bakersfield. Bakersfield, which is like a punchline in California, by the way, for being such a kind of she's not Sikh. But being kind of just a nowhere town with like nothing but Applebee's strewn about. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. So what do you think about her, the fact that she's a brown person?
I think it's just in her, like in this kind of like far lefty activist space, definitely it's deliberate. Like I've noticed a huge turn towards like ethnic symbols among people who are Americans. They're just like their parents were from wherever, and now they're going out of their way to wear like things that mark them out as different, as separate, as an other, while they whine constantly about being otherized. They're like, here's right. And it just I mean, I know a lot of people who are first generation immigrants, that is to say actual immigrants. I'm technically first generation, but I would call myself 1.5 because I'm not like I didn't do the move. My parents did it. I remember it. I remember learning English, I never took it for granted that I would be an American citizen and stay here for the rest of my life. It was always kind of up in the air until it happened. Um, and I grew up with that kind of, pendulum like swinging over my head that maybe I wouldn't get to stay in the United. Something would happen, and then the process would, and they would decide that I didn't belong, or my dad couldn't stay, and his various applications wouldn't be granted, and then I would have to go live in Pakistan, and it was a terrible thing as I was becoming more and more American. Like every year I was becoming more American, and yet I didn't have that guarantee. I didn't have that blue passport in my hand. And I think that there's a time in your life, like your formative, there's a certain like period in your life between you're like, I think like 9 years old to like 14, 15, where that's wherever you spend that time, that's home, that's like your culture kind of. But what was bizarre with me, I spent that time in America, but in that time, it was not, my citizenship was not in my hands, and I was not guaranteed to have the right to have to be able to stay in America. So I had this sense of I'm not a part of this culture, I'm an other and everything, but I wasn't resentful, because I desperately wanted to be part of the culture. I desperately wanted that affirmation and the guarantee of being able to stay and enjoy the fruits of this land and to participate in its institutions. And so for me, it was always this sense of like, I desperately want this and I want to stay here. So I've never felt, I don't know, there's this kind of resentment that second generation kids, like kids who are born here, they have the right, they have the blue passport. I think that there's something about that guarantee, that they feel as if they have rights to certain things that are being denied, that I didn't have that feeling at all because I literally wasn't a citizen. So I never had that negative approach. And I think that you see that in first generation immigrants. They're just like happy to be here. Like, I'm happy to be American. Like, thanks for letting me in.
Yeah, very
like,
patriotic.
I love it
often.
here. Yeah. Extremely patriotic. Yeah. You'll see them say very like bizarrely, like stuff that's like oddly patriotic. You'll see coming from the mouth of like an immigrant. I remember my swearing in ceremony when I got my citizenship. There were people there that were like weeping, but I think that process of, when you're a permanent resident, you're more or less going to stay here forever. It's really, it is at that point kind of hard to get kicked out. If there are like technical things can happen, yes. But at that point, just like, don't screw up and you'll get your citizenship. Still, it felt totally different when I actually had my citizenship in my hand. And I felt safer, and I wonder if like that is the difference between the first generation patriotism, the desire to be included in this community, and then like gratitude of being included and feeling as if like now I need to earn it, now I need to work hard and I need to be, like I need to be this like exemplary American citizen, like that sense of like pride and I deserve to have been included, that I think second generations, they just don't have because they were born here, they were born here. They feel as if they are just as American as everybody else. And that's good, right? Like that's a good thing, except the rest of our culture doesn't really inculcate that pride, and I think that the place that second gen like diaspora kids are kind of stuck in is that they I don't know if you've heard this like phrase, it's stuck between two worlds or something like that, or in between two worlds, trapped between two worlds. Have you heard that kind of phrase? But I think the more accurate phrase is that they actually are in between no worlds. Like they don't actually have access to either world, even if they wanted it. It's not as if they're being pulled in two different directions. And if only, one would let go, they could become fully the other. They can't become fully the other. Like there's like, especially when it comes to like Muslim, people who come from like these very traditionalist cultures, they might have parents who are forbidding them from becoming fully American in any, like I wasn't allowed to do the social things that would have marked me as a normal, ordinary American girl. I wasn't dating when I should have been dating. I wasn't going out. I wasn't partying. I wasn't even wearing shorts, much less,
It's so,
like,
I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but like it as an outsider or, as an American, that makes me so angry at those parents.
they don't know any better.
I know, but
that
it's,
but that,
oh, it just, my heart breaks,
that has to be like something that Americans do. Like when we have this sense that you just come in and there's this multiculturalist way of approaching the world, and people come in and that's great, and then they practice their culture at home and we're all happy living, like coexisting together. Sure, right? Like that's fine, that's very nice, but I think that we do, like, the general American public has to feel like their culture is actually valuable and good, and that the American way of life is a good way of life, and that these values are worth adopting, and we should expect that immigrants adopt them. Like what's surprising to me is that people don't feel as if they can ask anything of immigrants.
But I mean, if it's something like you should let your daughter date, I mean, that's up to the parents. It's not fair for us to say, but
I mean, in a more general sense, the expectation that you need to become American.
Right.
And of course that brings, that's not to say with a gun to your head, let your daughter go out with this white boy or else, but just that a general atmosphere of, look, this is your end of the bargain. Our end is that
we let you in
and we welcome you, and you get treated fairly under the laws, and we're going to do our best to do that. And we should hold up that part of the bargain. But then the immigrant side is be law abiding and also adopt the norms and values of the host country. Like, I don't know why that's like such
but
a
is it because American values are just not, they're not as clear cut? It's supposed to be a melting pot.
Americans don't.
How would you define an American value? It depends. If you live in New York City, that's one thing. If you live, in Kansas, it's another. So
it is, but it's like the differences between New York and Texas are tiny compared to the difference between either and like Pakistan, which is an ocean. And I think it's generally that we do not expect this of our immigrants. We don't, and we feel racist if we were going to. We have to just accommodate and embrace and celebrate all the amazing diversity and cultural diversity in America. And I think there has to be a give and take. I think we can accept some parts of it, but the assumption should be that over time you become more American, you become one with the melting pot. I mean, the melting pot, you actually have to melt in order.
No, we're against that
but
now. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not a melting pot. It's definitely just the multiculturalist mosaic. We've all adopted that, and people don't feel as if anyone else has a right to tell any other culture that that this isn't.
Even if, I guess there's so much immigration that you have these pockets where people can live decades and not learn English. I mean, you could be a Chinese person and live in Chinatown. I mean, those, after a generation or two, they do assimilate, but like you've got places in big cities that seem a lot like the country where people came from. I mean, they are very heavily immigrant populations, and people are not speaking English, and that's just a given.
Not speaking English, and like, it's even hard to convince some people that this is a bad thing.
I know. I think a lot of people would think it was great.
Yeah, this is amazing that English is not our official language. Like, well, maybe it should be. I don't know. Like this is like it. because they're not thinking it through. They're not thinking through the implications of literally not even being able to speak a common tongue, of literally not being able to communicate with other members of your society, and how that
well, that's
creates these it erects these boundaries that you cannot take down. You can't take down.
Our
How do you reach
social
them?
justice friends would say that's because the whites want to keep the immigrants down by keeping them not speaking English and keeping them subservient and propping up late capitalism. They have to work. They have no choice but to work as our gardeners and deliver Chinese food. So it's in all of our interests
for them to not speak English,
for them to not assimilate, because then we can control them.
I don't think they would say
they're going to say it.
That's an interesting.
But that's what the argument would be.
Yeah, but I definitely think that it is. I'm not sure why this kind of approach has just become so toxic. Just this idea that the American way of life is good, like just not even just better than others, but just good.
Wow.
Just
if it weren't for Trump,
on
it
a
would
baseline, be. Like I think it's very right. I mean, I think it's just it's almost definitely it has this sense of like, oh, you're definitely right wing if you think that American culture is good, or American values, to the extent that we have clear cut values, are good. To say that is to be.
I know. No, I know. I mean, even a flag is the code's very right wing. I always
just
hate what they did to my beloved bald eagles. I love bald eagles so much, and I hate how they become like a symbol of stupid, right wingers. Colbert. I loved the Colbert eagle. I loved it, but I know he was making fun of eagle types.
Well, because they did that because they're able to do that because it sounds as if so much of the left hates America and hates what America stands for, hates our history, hates our culture. Everything about America is wrong and bad, and we have to find a way to embrace all these other wonderful cultures that are going to bring all this amazing diversity
when they leave their cultures and come here because here's better. Yeah.
Right. I mean, nothing about it makes sense. Nothing about it makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
and it's just it necessarily we're going to turn into a country that just it's a standstill. Like, what are you going to do? You can't, on the one hand, you can't say to the Muslim parent that they should allow their daughters to, like go out of the house without wearing a headscarf or something like that. That's, but at the same time, you can't tell them what to do, and you can't even make them feel bad about it. They have to be embraced as this like wonderful symbol of how tolerant we are, to allow this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just
well,
yeah, I'm
getting back to Riddhi Patel,
who has been arrested.
Yeah, can we say
she felony.
Okay, so she's been charged for what she said. She's been charged with 18 felony counts. And there's also footage of her receiving her she's receiving the news of her sentencing or of her punishment, her charges, and she's crying and she can't believe it. And people are saying, well, that's because it's news to her that we don't live online and you can't just go around running your mouth in front of people in real time in the real world the way you would on Twitter. I don't know. I know you and I disagree with this. I think that this overkill, this overkill charging is going to backfire because it's going to turn her into a martyr, and it's just going to like further her position that we live in a terrible white supremacy. Even though I'm sure the Bakersfield City Council is not majority, certainly not all white. The mayor herself is an Asian woman, perhaps Chinese. I don't know. Anyway, so you think they were right to throw the book at her to this degree? Did you think she should actually go to jail? She's facing years in jail from this.
There's a legal specifics of it, which I can't speak to. Like whether this counts as intent to commit murder or anything like that. some people I saw were talking about how this was legally, how can they stand on this, because clearly she wasn't going to murder them. And that was not the
Yeah, she
intent.
was speaking euphemistically.
Yeah. And that I think that is how I would have interpreted it too, most likely. Having said that, there's a lot of mental illness going around in the kinds of communities and in the waters that woman swims in. So it's hard, okay, I am grateful that somebody like this shows up, says all these insane things on camera so that I can tell other people who I've been saying this for years, okay? Because I've been in progressive activism, that this kind of person exists. And there are so many of them. There are so many little pudgy little girls who are so mad about things.
Wait, are you fat shaming her? Hold on a second. What does this have to do with anything?
It's descriptive. I'm not shaming her. They just they happen to be pudgy. This is I don't know if it's a part of I don't know if you have to. I think you have to, in order to be a good social justice
you have to
warrior.
Show that you are not going to just bend to the man. You're not gonna present yourself as an object for the male gaze.
Yeah, you cannot be. I think the one thing that you can't be is very healthy looking, like very athletic.
She used to be
male or female.
Apparently, yeah. So there were some photos of her from high school that resurfaced. She was on the track team, and she was quite fit, and quite slender, actually.
Yeah, but maybe this is evidence. I think.
But look, it's emotionally exhausting to have to do this activism, and so you have to fortify yourself with snacks.
I think it is. I mean, it is. If we think in terms of mental hygiene, not illness in the sense that it's a disease, but that it's a kind of a state. You can put yourself into a mentally ill state by surrounding yourself with people who only speak in these crazy ways, who live in this warped world, and the social context that is crazy making. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen so many times, countless times. Young people who, fresh, out of college, excited about making a change in the world, getting involved in lefty activism, and then losing their minds completely, losing it. And usually their bodies, if you're a woman, you get fat. If you're a guy, you get fat, or you get so skinny that it's well, this guy has some kind of
is this because they're
wasting
stressed?
disease?
Is it what do you think is the reason?
I don't know. They just can't be healthy.
They don't exercise. I think they don't. Well, they don't go outside.
They don't go outside. They don't exercise. I don't think.
Although it does say,
think about these
so her public biography says she has a degree in neuroscience. Does that surprise you? And enjoys holding elected officials accountable, as well as movies, sports, and time outdoors with her family and friends.
It doesn't surprise me that she's probably very smart and could have done something useful with her life, but decided to do this. That doesn't surprise me. I've seen that. I've seen good. I think it's also impressionable people. That's one thread that I would, follow throughout all the different kinds of personalities that I've seen sort of get sucked into it. The one thing they seem to share is that they are impressionable. And when they get pulled into this kind of social atmosphere that, rewards this kind of behavior, they are optimizers. These are people who like to climb social ladders, and they like to please other people, and they've succeeded in it so far. They're smart enough to figure out what's the right way to say a particular thing to get what you want. And so they learn the language very quickly, and they rise. I mean, it's a Sarah Rao thing.
Yeah.
Sarah Rao is smart, and you can tell she's smart. The way she speaks like a person with a high IQ, for sure. That is partially why she's able to rise so high, because she understands the game quickly, picks up on it, goes to 10 with it, but it's just so deeply destructive, and it's sad to see over and over again. But I'm glad other people can witness it. I can say, hey, this thing, this whole situation,
I think,
happens.
yeah.
It's real.
I mean, she has to, at the end of the day, she has to live with herself. She has the biggest punishment for these people is that they have to be who they are.
Come on.
I think.
No,
I'm not
no,
saying
no.
she shouldn't be punished. I just think that like she's being
Would you
humiliated
say that about
right
somebody
now.
who was like stabbing
No,
somebody?
no,
Like,
no,
would you
no,
say, like,
no.
but you wouldn't.
I mean,
you
for
would say
speech
that.
crime. No, look, I'm just saying I take a lot of satisfaction often in knowing that these people are probably miserable and they have to live with their miserable selves. And it's not going to kill me if they are not outwardly punished but this is my own blinder. These are my blinders because I live in a state, like I operate on a system of guilt and shame. So I assume everybody else does. And I'm just going to choose to keep believing that. Otherwise I'll go insane.
No, I don't think. Do you think Syra Rao is guilty or feels bad about anything?
Well,
Like,
since
she's
coming
just
on
in,
our
like, a
show, I'm sure she's
rage all the time. Like, yeah,
at a
she's just in
but don't you
state of-
think? Okay, but this is like with the trans activists. Don't you think deep down, they know they're frauds and they know that they're being terrible?
I don't care. I just want them to stop. Like, I what I'm worried about is that they will spread their illness to other people, and spread the misery around. I agree with you that legally this smells funny to me, and I don't like the implications of it. I'm a free speech person. So from that perspective, I don't know how you can claim that this was like a legitimate threat.
It's all theater. It's both
Having
sides.
said that, I mean, look, ban, like the fight, like her place of work fired her, like her place of employment fired her. Normally I'm not like super pro firings, but in this case, I think that's like clearly a kind of thing that would reflect
like that
badly on their
representing
business.
your organization.
It makes sense that would be like a terrible look for the business, and it makes sense that it would harm their business interests and that they should have fired her, and the public shaming is, I think, totally something that is well deserved. And yes, it's a punishment. Not that this is the best vehicle. I don't think this is the best vehicle, the legal vehicle of bringing her down like this. But I do think that people like this have to be brought down, like, and badly. I do think something has to do it. If it's just a social thing, then that's what has to happen. Because I've seen too much complacency, and that's what's allowed it to spread. Because people think, oh, they're silly, they're clowns, or miserable, they're gonna kill themselves anyway. Like, how much harm can they do? And in fact, they can do a lot of harm. They can actually do a lot of harm. They can pull a lot of people in their direction. They can gain power over smaller institutions. And just like I've seen normal, intelligent people just get sick of it. You know what I mean? Like, just not that they are afraid or intimidated or anything. They're just sick of that shit. Like, they're just like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have better ways of spending my time. I'm going to leave it. It's like Trump taking over the Republican Party. Smart Republicans are like, well, why would I'm not doing this. This is not, I can do other things with my life. I'm going to go into the private sector because I cannot be around this guy. I cannot deal with this all the time. Even if I believe in the politics, even if I believe in making a change, how much of this bullshit can you take? Day after day of being harassed for the stupidest little infraction that's just their insane minds have made up. So I've seen people just step away, and I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that just decided to just peace out because I could not deal with the amount of like totally vacuous drama that people like this bring into institutions. And I've seen them spread. Like, they just keep going. They just keep failing upwards and bringing this kind of thinking and this kind of behavior to prestigious institutions, actually. And this is what's happening at like New York Times.
My concern is that if they get arrested and sit around in jail, it is all the more ammunition for them. It is proving that society is against them. They can be martyrs. It only elevates them. I'm into starving people of oxygen, but I know that that's like too subtle and everything. But she probably loves it. If she's probably scared, yes, but on some level, she would love it. These activists love nothing more than to be arrested. I mean, look at AOC. It's like, it's practically, she's like doing a ballet as she gets, walked away pretending that she's in handcuffs. I mean, it's the greatest thing. So that's the thing, is I feel like they've just played into her hand.
Yeah, maybe with this legal thing. Yeah, maybe with this legal thing. I think she needs a real consequence.
Yeah.
Like something that that actually follows her for the rest of her life. But she does need a consequence, and even if it makes her a martyr, I think for some amount of these people, they're just they're doing it for selfish reasons. They don't really believe in any of this. So martyrdom works for people who really believe in it. But some amount of these people are just hucksters. They're just like grifters. They're just there to play a role because it gets them social cred. And when they get pushed back like this, it scares them a lot. And there are videos of her like crying at the sentencing. So I think she is scared. And I think this I don't know if it will knock some sense into her, but I think that there are a lot of people who see what she is doing as an avenue for power. And they will think, oh no, this is too risky now. I don't actually want consequences. I didn't know that I thought this was just like a a path I could walk down and I would be handed roses along the way because I'm a woman speaking.
There's not, but
to
getting
power.
Arrested is the oldest thing in the world for an activist. So I'm sure so that's why I don't like this.
Sure. I think it's all of it being put together. Like that's scaring her a little bit, but I do think we need consequences. We need parents to put them in timeout. You know what I mean? Like they need to go in timeout, all of them. And this is my grudge against Gen X, who, pretends as if they are not a part of this, is that they're not willing to put the kids.
I know Gen X are terrible parents.
And now they're,
we're all so into how resilient we are and how we had no parents and we walked to school by ourselves when we were infants. But now I know we can't, we're raising the most, we're the ultimate helicopter parents. I mean, I've got a number of theories as to why that might be, but yeah, that's absolutely
I just finished
true.
Abigail Shire's book, and that's what that so much of the book is about. It's called Bad Therapy, but so much of it is also just about like parenthood and like the kind of attitude that Gen X parents went into parenting with, and the effects on children that were raised with such like deeply passive and validating parents. And I love the book. I did not I have several of the conclusions that she reaches are also my conclusions. I just didn't get to them in the same way that she got to them. This is how I imagine she ended up in this topic, which is that she was looking at gender identity and speaking to all these parents of children who have decided that they were the opposite sex and taking hormones and that kind of thing, medicalizing. And then she saw the pattern of therapy being involved, and then started to take a look at what therapy and like the profession has to do with how kids are the way they are now. I didn't have that practical, like I didn't speak to parents, but I also, in looking at transition, like how is this happening? How can we all be falling down this rabbit hole together and there's no one is stopping it and no one seems to be able to stop it? That's, I was looking at it more from a theoretical perspective, but I also ended up putting, the blame, like becoming very suspicious of therapy and the therapeutic like profession.
And there's just also so many more therapists than there used to be. I mean, I talked with Abigail about this when she was on my other podcast. Like there used to be like, there were like analysts and you would go to psychiatry, you would lay on the couch, that kind of thing. And now it's very easy to hang up a shingle and call yourself a therapist. So there's a lot of really mediocre, undertrained kind of people, just sort of people with a lot of empathy, a lot of, I've noticed this, like a lot of, we're going to beat up on women now. So if you've been waiting for this moment in the show, here we go. Like a lot of women go into therapy and they feel great about it and they love it and they're going through some kind of crisis and they enjoy the experience. And so they decide to become therapists and then they end up projecting their own problems onto their clients. And it just goes, it's a cycle, right? So there's just a lot. I mean, literally there's bad therapy because people, it's very, there's not a lot involved in becoming a certain kind of therapist at this point.
Yeah, I think I would have gone a little further than Abigail there because I wouldn't have just said that it was bad therapy. I would said that therapy is bad. Like I would go further.
Well,
I wouldn't just say there's a few bad eggs there. I would say that there is no methodology that you can, like, when people think that they're going to a therapist, they think that they are approaching a professional who is like a doctor of the mind. That's who they think that they are going to. They're going to somebody who has studied this, and it's a science, and it's based off of principles
I
that
don't
are
think everybody thinks
tested.
that. I
And
think
Oh,
it
I mean, I
depends.
think that's an assumption. That's an assumption. You don't think that you're going to somebody who's just like, following a school of thought that is, more akin to a
No, it
philosophy
depends.
than it is to.
Well, if you're going to like a marriage and family therapist, you're going to somebody who can deal with couples, or cognitive behavioral therapy is one thing. I mean, sometimes people go with very specific things. I don't think you can say that therapy doesn't work. She doesn't say that.
What is the science? What is it based on? Like, what is it based on? What? And
But that doesn't necessarily, I mean,
I
sometimes
can tell
it is
you what
based on
chemistry is based
what's
on.
that?
I can tell you what chemistry
Okay,
is
but
based on. I can give you the theories, and I don't know them at the top of my head because I'm not a chemistry anything, but I could find out and I can explain it to you. And there are tests that we can do, there are experiments that we can run, and even the fact that we have actually created things like products
I know,
due to our
I
correct
know what you're
belief
saying.
in this thing.
Okay,
That's not true.
but that's
I mean,
like,
it's just not through therapy.
but that's like saying that nothing is valuable unless there's a set of empirical
No, I'm
evidence that you're
saying it
working
is
with.
not a science. It's not.
I don't
a
think
science.
anybody
That-
calls therapy a science. I think psychology is
I think a lot of people
it's an
think
art.
it's a
I don't know. I
science.
mean, I think
people think it's an art. If it was an art, it wouldn't be in
I
schools.
think it's.
You know what I mean? Like, it
Are you
wouldn't
kidding?
be.
It would be everything in school. If it wasn't, if
No,
it
no,
was
no.
an art, I mean,
But people are approaching it as an area of expertise. But you don't have what is an expert in like in art? You know what I mean? Like it's
a professional
having
artist or an art teacher.
right. But you don't see professional artists come in and then reframe everything about how they approach teaching.
Sure, you do.
Right? Like,
I mean, there's schools
or you wouldn't
of
have
art
a
and there's
professional religious
movements in
people,
art.
or you wouldn't have. But they don't come in. They don't come in and start to tell parents, like, this is the best way of teaching a child. This is the best way of talking to a child. When therapy is having the kinds of effects that Abigail Shire describes, these are not the effects that we would see if it was just treated as if it's like a school of thought, like as if it's a option among many true things. This is like the truth. This is what experts believe. Like, this is
It
the
depends.
right way.
I think I'm a fan of Abigail's. I like the book. I love talking with her. I think she's really interesting when you have these conversations with her. I think there's a tendency to talk about these things with a broad brush. I am not gonna agree with you when you say that there's no such thing as helpful therapy and that it's never.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So don't say that.
So what you're saying is,
I'm saying it's not a science.
Okay.
I'm saying it's not. There's no body of work that is anything more than what we would what a religious school of thought might be. Like, there's no.
I don't know. I don't think
evidence.
That's true.
It's not based on evidence.
I don't know that that's true. I mean, a lot of therapists are going to be listening to this right now and saying, you don't know what you're talking about. But,
they can say
that's
that,
just
and
called
they can
another
be wrong.
Monday around here. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do therapy, and there's a lot of different reasons people come in, and
but that is proof that there is no foundation. Like, that is the fact that there's not a lot of different ways to do chemistry. There's not a lot of different ways to do physics. There's not a lot of different ways to do even medicine, right? Like, the body, like the physicians, like the work that the physician. How many different ways are there to do surgery?
There's Chinese medicine,
there's a
there's
way
acupuncture.
to get,
I don't know
exactly. I think, but that's not medicine, right? Like, we don't.
Well, it works.
Like,
people say it works, and it's
Megan. That's placebo effect. Like, we know that. Like, but they're actually there's when you take a Western medicine, not an acupuncture, but something that's supposed to have an effect. If it actually has, ideally in an ideal world, it has a certain kind of effect on your body, and that's measurable, and raises your blood pressure or lowers your blood pressure or whatever. It has that effect. We understand kind of why that happens. Hopefully we understand exactly why that happens and exactly why that medicine is doing that. But that means we have an understanding. We have a fundamental.
There's an agreed upon set of facts about this.
There's agreed.
No, I understand what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but I don't think I don't.
it's
okay.
like,
I don't know what your larger thing is. Like, yes, I agree with that is all true. And by and large, we are in agreement that there's a lot of crappy therapy out there and people over rely on it. And there's too many therapists, but definitely people have been helped. I mean, for sure, all the time.
Sure. I don't deny that. And I don't think that that is possible. I think a lot of things that are not science are good and worthwhile and worth engaging in. But I think that when we're thinking about broad scale public policy, right? Like things going into public schools of which we all have a stake in it. People have children that go to these public schools and they don't have a choice. They can't just, I would love school choice, but that does not exist. And so it matters to me that therapists, like people with this kind of understanding of this view of the world, this specific opinion about how the world works and how the human mind works, have so much influence.
No, I agree. They have too much influence.
Like they should not. I think they should have no influence because they're not. Like I think schools should be teaching them facts and schools should be teaching them, the theories about the world and building a body of knowledge in their own head and giving them skills that they they can use.
But what about skills to cope with certain situations? That's something that kids can be taught. Like they've got a terrible family situation. They can be told, what can I do to avoid acting out or harming myself? Can I count to 10? Can I listen to music?
What is the interesting thing about Abigail Shrier's book is that she just gives all this evidence as to why they're doing the opposite of that. Like therapy is doing the opposite of teaching kids how to cope. It's making it harder for them to cope.
A lot of therapy, yes, a lot of it, but not all of it. Look.
How can you say that? Because we see, we don't know for sure either way. All we know is that kids are worse off than they've been before. There are some studies as to how kids behave after like therapeutic exposure in some schools. I don't recall at the top of my mind like the details, but it hasn't been good for therapy. And again, there's no consent. I didn't consent to it. I don't want my kids exposed to that. That's somebody's opinion about what works.
Agree.
And they don't.
The parents should not be railroaded by therapists.
To me, it's like religion. It's like a religious belief. You can have your religious belief, and maybe it can help you and can be very good for you. Great, your truth, amazing, enjoy it. Freedom of belief in this country, I'll stand by that for sure. But do not bring it into schools. Do not tell me that my child has to go to church because I don't want them to go to church. I don't.
But what is the definition of therapy to you? Because I think that if a kid comes in and is obviously having problems and has got a terrible situation at home, to be able to sit down and say, what is going on? Can you tell me? Here are some things, here are some tools that we can use so you can cope better. Is that something other than therapy?
That could be therapy, but that's not the place of the school.
Really? At all? Ever?
Yeah.
Never?
No. That's not the place of the school.
Okay.
That's the place of a social worker. Get out of school, get them a social worker. If that's the kind of treatment like that you want them to be helped in this way, get a social worker involved. Okay. And then but it has to be something that the parents have to
What if the parents are just totally
with.
Chaotic, totally on drugs, out to lunch, and the school is the only place where the kid has any safety and any access to services like that?
Take the kid away from the parents if it's actually that bad. If it is that bad,
well,
it's abuse.
I think there's
the parents are on drugs all the time. They're not around. They're abusing the kids.
But
somebody is sexually abusing. Crimes are being committed. Like that's criminal neglect of the child. A crime is
how are they supposed to know that if they can't communicate with the kid? You don't think like a counselor, a school counselor saying, do you want to tell me what's going on?
It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. And I recommend that people read Abigail Shrier's book. Again, I would actually go. I think she doesn't go far enough at understanding it, at explaining how devastating this kind of thing is. But I think it is totally inappropriate for the school to put itself in a position of a parent, of to attempt to be this like guide in their life, this like loving. I think that too many people have watched movies about a teacher changing the life of a student.
Dead Poet Society,
and they have taken that to heart, and they do not understand how often actually strange adults can be a terrible influence in the lives of children, and how they can be deeply toxic. There's not enough movies about that, about the creepy
No.
teacher who takes way
There's
too much
only
interest in
Charles Dickens novels.
right. But it's not their place. Like, that is not it is not their place to do it. I think it is it's so much of not just from in this therapy angle, but like broadly, our idea of what schools are supposed to do has changed so much. Like, they are supposed to do everything except teach the children reading and writing and math. Like, they can't do that. That's the one thing you can't ask them to do. They won't do it. They can't do it. They'll do everything else. I'm not surprised that it's so hard for children to learn, and that we're seeing so much like incredible failure. I wouldn't pin it on therapy alone. I would pin it on a lot of things, but I definitely think that the attitude that schools have towards students and how that's been shifting over time has a role to play. They're acting like a Gen X parent, like a bizarrely indulgent, validating parent. I don't think they're
The schools?
Yeah.
Yeah, except when they do nothing. I mean, it seems like it's extremes. I mean, maybe it's like, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I don't think it is across the board that way. I think that there are elements definitely where that happens, but there are other.
What do you mean it's not across the board?
I just think that there are plenty of schools where nothing is happening at all. Nobody's paying attention to anything. Everything is just discipline. I mean, the teachers are acting.
Where's the discipline?
Well, no, but they're not allowed to do it. The teachers are just like being held hostage by these kids, and they're not allowed to intervene. They're not allowed to suspend them. They're not allowed to do anything.
That's the Gen X parent that Schreier talks about, which is just that they're permissive. They're not allowed to discipline, and because they're not allowed to discipline, they're not allowed to actually be a parent and actually be a guide. And it turns out that that's important in teaching as well.
I think we would have to work on this analogy a little bit. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not sure it's again, I know I'm the squish here. I know the listeners are gonna love this, but
I think what frustrates with me, and I get where you're coming from, and I also can see from your perspective how, like, my approach sounds very harsh and extreme. And I've been here for a long time, unfortunately. Like, now it's like nice to see some people talking about how therapy can be bad sometimes, so that's really good. But I think we have a ways to go. I think the first generation that was raised by Gen X parents, and who experienced teachers
Gen X,
like this.
Are they baby boomers? I don't know that they're Gen X. I mean,
they're Gen X.
Really? They're
your age.
My age?
Yeah.
Oh my
God!
I'm gonna
my dad is.
I'm gonna fire you and do a podcast with your parents.
My dad is a little bit older than you, but my mom is your age.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents are your age. Yeah. But they are not. But they are not. They're immigrant parents, so they did not have that same upbringing, and I feel terribly glad. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's only after seeing how much dysfunction exists in other people, like American homes, due to people placing too much emphasis on like a very kind of permissive style of parenting and super therapeutic, and let's talk about your feelings and like let introspect. I've seen how that forms these personalities that are actually just deeply narcissistic. Like, at what point does introspection become narcissism? I think that what you really have to do is stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about other people, and that is the foundation of all these virtues that we want our children to adopt. You just stop thinking about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like this is what, like, the Christians are all about: service service to God and service to community. No, I agree. Look, I am in agreement. We are not in disagreement. I am just not prepared to say that therapy is not useful. So
I am not saying it's never useful. I'm saying it's not a science, and I'm saying it's not a body of work that it has the kind of like scholarly basis, like factual basis that we can that it is proper for it to be in any kind of setting where people do not consent to it. Like if should not be in public schools, should not be in any public institution, period. Like nothing, no health services, all this stuff. Like that's the realm of true facts, reality, the things that we understand we know to be true, not just we believe it very deeply to be true. I don't know how it has spread as far as it has. I'm really disturbed to see like younger people use therapeutic language all the
Oh, I know.
time,
It's
just like in their
terrible.
casual
I agree.
conversations.
It's
They're just
pathetic.
diagnosing
No,
everyone.
I know. It's
They're
a joke.
diagnosing everyone.
Well,
This
you're right.
has this person, and this person has this
Yeah.
person. This kind of dysfunctional way of communication, and this person is, has this kind
Yeah,
of
of course.
toxic approach to And
everything
when
is
I was
trauma.
alive, this trauma, everything's trauma. But
PTSD. Everyone's
they are
bipolar. They're all bipolar.
this is their fundamental lens of how they understand human, like the self.
No, I agree.
Self.
That
you know what I mean?
We are in complete agreement on, and we've talked about that a lot.
But how was it formed? Right? It was formed because it's in the culture.
Yes,
in the
I agree.
culture. It's infringing on us all the time.
In complete agreement. I'm in complete agreement. It has, watered down therapy ideas have overtaken the culture.
So how do we fix it? Without getting it out?
I don't know how we fix any of this. I mean, but this is like, it's all over TikTok. It's all over everything. But I don't think that means that, therapy in and of itself doesn't have uses. It's like,
but that's not, nobody's saying that it has zero uses. That's like saying like I would never say tarot card reading has no uses, because I think it does have. I wouldn't say that. I would say that it has uses, that it is probably good for some people, that it can be helpful to some people. I'm saying that it does not have a basis in evidence, in like reality as we know it. That I think a lot of the benefits are actually external to the practice. Like they're, with tarot card reading, it's like, you're seeing a person,
they make you think of your life in a certain way, and
in a different way. They're helping you look.
Yeah.
They're reframing something that maybe, helping you break out of a way of thinking about something. That exercise is like, really, I mean, a good friend could talk to you about this kind of stuff. It could be useful. I would not deny that could be useful for people. And it's also, there's an element of, now I have control over my life. Now I understand things, that could be helpful for people with anxiety and like weird, neurotic approaches to life. It can be helpful to them to feel as if they're in control. I can totally see how tarot card reading is helpful and good for some people. I would not recommend that it be in any kind of public institution on any level, right? Like if you want to pay for tarot card reading,
no, I agree.
But I just don't think it should
disagree.
be.
Maybe, and we should wrap up. But I mean, maybe this is like a sort of semantic issue. I mean, I find it very interesting that in places like in the Midwest, they don't use the word therapy. They talk about counseling. They say, "Oh, I was going through a hard time, so I went to see a counselor." And I remember being shocked by that when I moved from New York to Nebraska. And I was like, wait, you're going to a camp counselor? Like, I just thought it was the cheesiest thing. And people would go to marriage counseling as opposed to couples therapy. And I just think it's like, it is helpful if you are having, any kind of trouble, for somebody to say like, let's look at what you have. They're almost like a consultant. It can be. Of course. No, I agree. I do not think we need therapists in the schools. Do we need counselors in the schools? Yes. And I think it's important to talk about what they're going to do, what their jobs
Career
are.
Counselors, sure. College counselors,
no,
sure.
Well, yeah. I mean,
mental health, wellness, no. It's
not at all.
Place. And
not at all. In an elementary school.
Not unless it is a proven, not unless you know that the treatment that you're applying is going to be helpful. And they don't know that. They don't actually know that. And that's why we are where we are. That's why we have like bad therapy to begin with, because what's the distinction?
Right.
How do you know between good and bad therapy? You don't. You go to the person, you hope they're like giving you good advice and they don't screw you up. But what if you're a kid and you don't have any access to anybody else but this one person who's telling you that they are the expert on
I agree.
relationships and friendships, and
very regulated what they can do and what they can't. I do think it's important to have people in the school who can keep an eye on the kids. This kid looks like there's something bad going on at home. These are mandated reporters. I mean, kids, there are seriously dysfunctional families. These kids have nobody. During the pandemic, they weren't going to school. There was abuses going on at home.
Teachers can do that. Teachers can do that.
They can, but they're
Therapists,
charged with
counselor
so
doesn't
many
need
things.
it.
Look, I mean, this is a team sort of thing. I don't know. Look, we're not actually in disagreement. I think that, this is sort of a matter of
I don't think they belong in
extremes.
schools. I don't think they belong in schools. I don't think that even in the cases of like, so what's more likely and more harmful, that they will do more harm than good. Like, I guess that's a distinction, that I think that it is more likely that they will do more harm than good, and that the fact that it is unproven and it's not resting on anything solid means that it should stay out of the public sphere. Like, it should be something I consent to, it as a child or as a parent or whatever, but it should be something I consent to. It should not be forced upon me. But that is what is happening to parents who are unfortunate enough to have to send their kids to public schools.
I agree. We're not in disagreement about that. I will be very curious to hear what our listeners have to say. Many of whom are therapists.
Yeah, we got a lot of therapists in the house. Look, I got a lot of therapists in my family.
No, so you're just mad at your family members.
I have a bunch of brown family, so lots of doctors, and then the ones who couldn't go to med school, like
the flunkies. I get it.
Clinical psych thing, and then some are psychiatrists too, actually. They won't give me meds though, Megan. That's my real problem.
Yeah, no kidding.
Is that I don't get any Adderall.
Yeah, we need to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, rate and review the show, everybody. Unless you hated it, in which case you can skip. But otherwise,
yeah. In which case, say nothing, please.
I guess that's it.
We'll be back.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. You have reached the end of the episode, which probably means you like our content. Why don't you join our Substack right now? You can become a paying subscriber at a specialplace.substack.com. You can join our listener community, leave comments, interact with everybody. We'll see you in there. It is totally worth it. So please join us, a specialplace.substack.com. And thanks for listening.